go live now, and then Lillian will join when she can as we go live. So now what you're going to be seeing is a breakout session screen that's going to pop up.
So we're waiting 5 more minutes.
My apologies, everyone. I just got told that we're waiting 5 more minutes and then we're going to go live. Sorry about that.
Just gone live. I don't know if we Okay, go. Go live.
Okay, we're going live again, guys. Sorry about that. So we're going live. So I'm going to be sharing a screen, a breakout session screen. And then, Kosi, you're going to wait 10 seconds after you see the screen. And then that's your cue. Then you can go. Then the show's all yours, guys. Good luck, everyone.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Do you guys, obviously, you know that the topic that you're talking about.
Hi guys, just checking if you all can hear me.
So I'm just concerned, I've just gone live with the other 2 sessions.
Kevin, are we live or not?
Hello? It seems like it's saying live up on top there. Can we? Hello? I guess we are now. It's saying live on top of the screen. Look.
This one?
Yeah, no, he said he would be going live as soon as he stops sharing his screen. So I guess we are live now. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and hello everybody and good afternoon and thank you for joining us and first of all we really like to thank and congratulate the African Philanthropy Forum and thank them for inviting us to this particular session. And thank Mrs. Masiyiwa, the board chair, and my sister Mosun for giving us the opportunity to be part of this conversation. We have a very interesting theme for our breakout session, and it is we're looking at the title actually is looking inwards, investing in medical research to drive local solutions to endemic diseases in Africa. Big issue. And on the panel, we have 2 great speakers. Dr. Isaivani Naika of the African Academy of Sciences and Professor Sheikh Ibrahim Anyang of Sheikh Anta Diop University of Dakar. Dr. Isaivani Naika is the Director of Strategy and Partnerships at the African Academy of Sciences. And in her role, she nurtures strategic partnerships to increase and diversify the number of partners and strengthen engagement with stakeholders in line with the African Academy of Sciences Strategic Plan 2018-2022. And prior to joining the AAS, she worked as Chief Director of International Resources and Cooperation at the Department of Science and Technology in South Africa. She has worked previously as a research scientist at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in South Africa still, focusing on environment and sustainable development. She was involved in various policy-making processes in science, environment, and mining fields in post-apartheid South Africa. She's currently Research Associate at the Democracy Works Foundation, has previously been Research Associate at the University of Cambridge Center for Science and Science Policy, and a visiting fellow at Wits School of Governance, University of Witwatersrand. And she's a member of various international research bodies and networks. Her PhD in geography was taken at the University of Cambridge. The other speaker we have is Professor Nyang. I will introduce Professor Nyang to you in a little while. Professor Nyang has completed several studies on infectious diseases, and their outbreaks on the continent: HIV, AIDS, Ebola, COVID-19, of course, non-communicable diseases, sexuality, gender-based violence, reproductive health, vaccination programs, and urban ecology. He has field experience in Guinea, in Mali, Sierra Leone, North Kivu, in the DRC, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. He has served as a member of numerous task forces and scientific committees, the Ebola Science Committee of the WHO, for example, the Afro Task Force on Immunization, World Health Organization Women Health Commission in the Africa region, and a member of High-Level Commission on HIV/AIDS Prevention. In July From July to August of this year, he coordinated the community engagement initiative against COVID-19, which deployed 12,000 volunteers at in various districts of Senegal, in the medical region of Dakar in particular. Sheikh Ibrahim Niang holds a doctorate data, PhD in sociology, a doctorate in tourism SIG, something like an MPhil in environmental sciences, and a master's degree in anthropology. And he currently teaches and supervises PhD and master's programs at Sheikh Anta Diop. So I just, before giving you the floor, I just want to say a few things, three very quick observations. First of all, health obviously is recognized by everybody as a key sector and something that deserves all the attention and the investments that governments, the private sector, philanthropy, communities, and civil society can make. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen how health, the economy, human security, and international relations are all so closely connected, particularly as a result of globalization, I would say. In practice, however, although research in agriculture and health have been receiving quite a lot of attention in Africa when it comes to research, the health sector more generally, particularly public health, has not been really the top priority. Because 19 years after the adoption of what was called the Abuja Declaration in 2001, according to which governments committed to spending 15% of national budgets on health, actually very few countries have met those targets. And as you all know, the great fears and the predictions that COVID-19 will make several millions of people in Africa lose their lives. This was at the onset of the pandemic. These predictions were largely based not only on the nature of social life, people living in communities, living together, eating together, and so on, and widespread poverty on the continent, but also on the fact that the health systems of our continent were, and they still are, far too under-resourced to deal with, to be able to cope with the existing disease burden already, let alone to have a huge increase in the disease burden as a result of the pandemic coming to the continent. So all the predictions were that this will be a disaster. People will die in millions on the continent. Now, that didn't happen, and it's an interesting subject of conversation. But the fact of the matter is health was not prioritized as it ought to have been, and hopefully that is going to change. Second general observation I want to make is that talking about research, medical research, and all research actually on the continent, by all accounts, Africa is said to generate less than 1% of the world's research data. Now, there is a problem obviously with the metrics and with the counting and the analytics and so on. We know that there is a lot of undercounting, not all the outputs, not all the knowledge produced on the continent is taken into account by the traditional mechanisms, through the traditional mechanisms. However, even with the undercounting, Africa, we know, is not generating as much as 5% of the world's research output or research data. The good news, however, is that the situation is changing very rapidly, and Africa has actually the fastest growing research population on the continent, in the world actually. And some African countries have been generating a large number of publications. And there's a recent article in Elsevier Connect. Elsevier is one of the huge publishing conglomerates, according to which data analyzed using Elsevier's CVAL tool, which measures research performance of 8,500 research institutions and 220 nations worldwide, they found out that compared to other regions, Africa has by far the strongest growing scientific production, 38.6% over a 5-year period, starting from 2012 to the end of 2016. The number of authors is growing at an equally astounding rate, 43% over the period, which is quite amazing compared to what is happening elsewhere. Now, part of this, of course, is the result of both governments devoting greater attention to research, including at the regional level. We know about the creation of the Africa Center for Disease Control in 2016, following the Ebola outbreak, which has made a huge difference. And there are also very good international collaborations and partnerships, some of which Elsevier itself has been involved in. And philanthropy has made immense contributions. Some of the foundations, big foundations, Wellcome Trust, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, High Life, and others have contributed immensely. Of course, the big question is whether, in medical research in particular, these developments are going to drive local solutions to the endemic diseases, which is what our panel is focusing on. My third and last observation, very quickly before I leave the floor to the panelists, is that medical research is really critical, it's very important. But on this panel, we'll be talking about medical research and biomedical research, but also the social sciences and humanities. Because the drive to find local solutions to endemic diseases is obviously not to be confined to what the biomedical sciences are doing. And we'll hear a lot of that when we hear Professor Nyang speaking. Health issues are not only technical or biomedical per se, they are a lot more than that. And there are a lot more other issues that we need to understand if we want to address the health challenges in an equitable and in sustainable ways. So with those preliminary observations, I would like to invite our two panelists, beginning with Dr. Isaivani Naika. When we are talking about local solutions, obviously it means there is a problem with the solution. We have a number of cases in which solutions adopted globally are applied on the continent. They may work, they may not work, right? So having solutions that work on our continent is obviously what makes a lot more sense. But what are those solutions? How much innovation has there been? How have things worked out? And how can research, how has research been helping to enhance those local solutions? And how can research make those solutions much better? So Dr. Naika, you have the floor for an initial, say, intervention of about 5 minutes or so. And then
Thank you very much. So I think, when many years ago, when the new Partnership for African Development was created, there was this byline that they had African solutions for African problems. And I think that's been always true and continues to be true now, even now. But in order to have people invest their time and effort in developing these African solutions, we need an investment in money. So African scientists play a crucial role in fighting poverty, in fighting disease, endemic, whether it's a pandemic or epidemic. And specifically after epidemics like, Ebola, but also the malaria endemic disease within Africa, but now with COVID. But what the issue is that there's too few African scientists at the moment. There's only 198 researchers in Africa per million, compared to around 4,500 in the UK and the US. But their contributions are vital to solving these problems. And African governments need to invest more in research and development to create this pool of talent and expertise to transform the continent. I elaborate more on this in an article that I wrote in the World Economic Forum agenda, and it's stating, why does Africa need to invest in homegrown science? Why does it need to do that? Because in order for us to be able to produce this research that will lead to innovation, that would then lead to products that will be transforming people's lives, we really need to make that initial investment in research and development. So African governments committed to investing 1% of GDP in the Abuja Declaration. To date, no country has invested that. That's not to say governments aren't investing. However, what the other issue is that it's not very easy to track the investments that they're making. They might make investments, but then we're not able to track it efficiently, and that's a problem. So at the African Academy of Sciences, we have a platform called the Alliance for Accelerating Science in Africa. And through this platform, what we do is we leverage partnerships with a broad range of partners. African governments, we must say that African governments did come to the table. Nigeria is invested, but the money that is going into research is mostly, as you've stated, from these large philanthropic organizations and even governments overseas, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Wellcome Trust, DFID, CEDA, and others. So through this platform, what we do is it's a funding and agenda setting platform that we've created called AISA, and it's hosted at the African Academy of Sciences. But through that, what we do is we support scientists on the continent. One really important program is the Grand Challenges Africa, which says that, you know, science doesn't really have the support it needs. So how do we support innovation as well? So people might be doing research in the lab, but taking that research from the lab into to society requires investment in innovation. You know, it doesn't make a transition very automatically. So that investment in innovation is important. But what we're really struggling with is how do we get more investment from Africa? Because it's only when we make the investment, then we own the agenda, we own the products, and we own the data. And this is crucial for fighting endemic diseases, for fighting all of the myriad of issues that we're having to deal with related to poverty, related to climate change, related to water and others. So for me, this investment should be firstly from Africa for African solutions, but in African research. We are now getting another program through the European Union, also a big funded program to support researchers postdoctoral to go into become researchers, leading researchers, leading innovators. But to date, we're not having sufficient investment from African sources. So this is the challenge. How do we address this? And I think forums like this are really important because what we have at the table are philanthropists. It was stated in one of the other sessions that philanthropists often like to invest in things that are very easy to see and, you know, where they could cut down possibly. But research, development, science, innovation is a long-term project. But the investments and the impact that it can have for lives on the continent is huge. So we, urge philanthropists to, besides investing in building schools and in youth programs, which are very, very important, to also look at investment in science, technology, and innovation and research and development to address the endemic diseases in biomedical research, in medical innovation. So I could stop there and hand it over to the other panelists. I could go on.
Great. You get back to it. Thank you so much for this initial contribution. I think you're right. We have to, we can't expect others to be providing the resources that are needed for the research to be done, and then hope at the same time for the solutions to be local and to be tailored all the time, in ways that we wish them to be. So definitely there has to be a lot more investment. That's the starting point, from within the African continent. Professor Nyang, Sheikh, you have had this intervention from Dr. Naika. What would you say when people talk to you about local solutions to endemic endemic diseases on the continent, and how investing in medical research they're talking about, but also investments in other forms of research could help in making those solutions available and tailored in ways that work for us?
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much also for Dr. Naike. I would like to start by giving an emphasis to the fact that endemics, epidemics, and all the health crises are. Did you hear me? Do you hear me?
You can hear. There's an echo. Your voice is vibrating, but you can hear you very well. Yeah.
Okay. And epidemics start in communities and end up finish in communities. So communities as a matrix, as a foundation for solutions, whatever technicality is brought upon. So if you look at untold stories of HIV, AIDS, Ebola, or recently Corona, you may find out what's come from the history of medical advancement all over the world. That means that the technicity did not resolve the problem. It's the social change, it's the society, it's the living conditions that play a key role into making change, into resolving the problems. So we can say also that what's found out in Africa, these untold stories, is that the success of the response to the situation depend a lot from communities. Is the untold story is the fight, the struggle of the communities to resolve their own health crisis. This is why we need to have in mind the context, the health situation in which the technology or the investment, the research need to put in. And when we look at that, there is mostly an invisible ongoing endemics problems, where sometimes you have statistics, but statistics are not enough. Statistics don't tell the real story, the story as is lived by communities. We still, I can mention malaria. Anytime we was confronting with AIDS, Ebola, or Corona, when you come to the communities, to the villages, they will tell you, no, it's not a new disease. Yes, it's just malaria. Malaria is so pregnant. Malaria is so deep that any new epidemics that arrive, people will look at as a new form of malaria. So investing in malaria, finding technology in malaria will be a key point that we have to achieve. So there is not of neglected disease, meningitis, chikungunya, plague, Zika, all these diseases. We don't talk about that now. We just talk about corona or the disease or the pandemic, because that's come from the health actuality that is globally. Now, how to connect this global challenge and the local challenge is not only a practical issue, but it is also a research issue. Maternal mortality, a big problem with maternal mortality. The figures are terrifying, but the real stories told by women who are dying, our sisters, mothers, these stories are not just the present. It's not put on the board to stimulate, to drive the response of our states and the people. And non-communicable disease, all this silent disease that is growing very fast in Africa, are stories that we don't document, we don't talk, we don't let people talk about them. And all these stories, these problems include some gender issues, how gender issues are affecting the health situation in Africa. So this is why all these big problems, including corona, have huge economic impact. Economic impact is itself a health problem. It's a health crisis. And how we can put all these things together. That's true. We are having some research, some medical research that are going, and that are going very fast. If only take this issue of COVID, Nigeria is experiencing vaccine that is not put on the scene. We talk about experiences about in the US or in Europe, but African institutions are doing the same struggle. When we talk about all these gels, these alcoholic gels, and this respirator, some universities was in advance. They was even ready to send some material in the US to help them resolve the problems. Or I don't talk about the mask that the local tailors have taken care of. So a lot of research development, lot of research is going on, but it's the power relation and the image that the external image that don't make them visible. But these research are not enough, because if it was enough, we would have resolved this issue of disease long time ago. So the duration of the disease means that the research itself have some problems, have some gaps. And I want to go through that gaps. One of that, of course, there is a lack of funding, that's true, but there is some epistemological, like this paradigmatic framework that we have to settle. And we have to settle it, we have to bring in board the social aspect, the cultural aspect, the historical aspect, the political aspect. We cannot afford doing only technical research or technological research. How you link it, it will be one of the tasks. Because if you think that the solution is only medical or technical, I will tell you, we are having the wrong pathway. And so, the diseases are social, economic, and have cultural dimension, how to put them together. But we have to go. The issue of corona is very interesting. We put all the reasoning that come from the international media or the international research. You tell you, okay, Africans are prepared because of the weather. Africans are prepared because we have the demographic patterns that that shows that we have more young people than old people. But all of them, when you take them into consideration, you will find that our old people are not dying as much as it's happened in the rest of the world. What does it mean? It means, what is the issue of resilience? How resilience is constructed? How resilience show the history of fighting. The communities are fighting, as they are inventing, they are putting things together. And this history is in large part ignored. If we don't put this technological lesson from the global into the technology, the knowledge, the indigenous knowledge that help people to fight, and that makes that right now African people are strong, are stronger. That doesn't mean that they are invulnerable. No, but it means that there is a capital of experience that people have translated into social relationship, into how we deal with older people, how we don't put them in a corner and put them in a setting where they interact with young people or younger people, and still they don't have this vulnerability that is shown in the other society. This is why this concept of social distancing is a little bit disturbing, because it's true. Physical distancing is important, but we invest in social proximity in order to help people. When I say social proximity, it's if you look at all this new technology, this phone, and this just saying hello, this social capital is a barrier that help the societies to overcome overcome this situation. So the behavior, the social network, the gender, how women take care of disease, and still women in Africa are less. You don't have this huge load. You have the load, but if with AIDS and Ebola, at the beginning it was men, and after a while it was women who was predominantly, because women are the one who take care of the disease. But for corona, it did not happen. Why? If you look at the microprocesses, you have many microprocesses that women put into place into putting physical distancing, washing their hands. How many times these women wash their hands? Because they cook, because they take care of the babies, because of they are in a context, in a social context of where they take care of the health problems. So these things are not documented. They have to be. We need to put them in connection with new technology. It's only when we realize their social responses, their social responses, something new. And so the issue of ecology is not present. The issue of One Health, the health from the environmental health to the animal health, this issue of animal health, of biodiversity, still on about the need, the research for cure or vaccine or treatment is very important. But the most important is how the societies have organized the philosophical, the ontological, the ecological link between human being and the rest of the nature. This is a big issue that we have to put on board. And the traditional medicine. How traditional medicine are not on board. How herbalists are not on board. So this narrows, the fact that we narrow the domain of the research makes that our research is sometimes are not relevant or don't have, they may be relevant, but does not have the attended results. So how can we put this on board in order to these mission issues, the lack, we are making a lot of research at the medical and a technical level, but there is not enough synergy. As an institute will be in Senegal, will be working on the vaccine, another one will be in Nigeria or over there, they don't connect. So that's true. We need to have the local subtitle, the virus subtitle. That's true. But we still need to make some synergy between ourselves, between all domain of research institute. Instead of competing, competition is good, but synergy, cooperation will be a new paradigm that we have to put on board. Cooperation with traditional healers, with medical traditional healers, and cooperation, working on social aspect of resilience, how resilience have been embodied in social dynamics. When we, after saying that, so I said, who invests and what? We always look at investment as financial investment. We don't have enough money. Okay, money should come from outside. Money should come from the state. That's true. Money should come from local businessmen. This local mama, Ben's local woman, she should be happy to contribute. When you have some events, even the football game, you will see vendors in the streets, women selling fish, and who will contribute and make their team, their football team or their soccer team to succeed. But because they have been called upon, they have been recognized, they have been sensitized. There is a communication that makes them proud to contribute. So these issues were not, in my sense, very, very important, very looked upon. The social responsibility of business people, how we can take this, the social responsibility and the environmental responsibility of the business, of the firms, and all these places that make money. And besides that, non-financial investment. What the corona shows, they show that people will do things voluntarily. People will do things and will not get for money. And this is why I mentioned about this 12,000 volunteers, including more than 1,000 students who work for free, and researchers, senior researchers, about 10 senior researchers came and work for free. So this potential of working for free, because there is empathy, and empathy will be part of the solution, the resolving this solution. This, I think, should open new ways or new paradigm of putting this mobilization together. Finally, when we put all these things together, I think we are moving now from medical research to health research, and health is basically social. These are some issues that I would like to share with you, and I am at your disposal to continue the exchange. Thank you very much again. I don't hear you. I don't hear you.
Muted. Ibrahima, you're muted. Ibrahima, you are muted.
You don't hear.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't realize.
Okay.
Thank you. So I will, this was really great points, very, very, very many great points. We'll come back to some of them. many important issues you are raising. Really, fundamentally, is where you ended. That I think the point is, we are talking
Yes.
about medical research, or are you talking about health research? I think that's a
Yes.
really an important
Thank you.
conceptual issue and a better way of framing it. And I think it's better to
Thank you.
invest in health research rather than narrowly on medical research. It doesn't mean that
Thank
medical
you.
research is not important. I think
Yes.
that's fundamental. You touch on many things. First of all, the local doesn't mean that we do things separately in our own corners or in our own disciplines, in our own
Yes.
localities, but
Yes.
we connect different initiatives, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
then I
Yes.
think local, we're thinking African, we're thinking sub-regional, we're thinking
Yeah.
beyond the narrowly geographically defined local.
Yes. Yes.
And you've talked about many of the other players who are in there. Let me just go back to Dr. Naika one minute. In the research you are doing at the African Academy, or what you are seeing, since you've got an overview, this is a Pan-African institution as well. What are the other what can call some innovative ways of responding to these endemic diseases, from what you are seeing, or some of the things that you are promoting practices that sort of show that there's actually, as you both have said, something going on the continent which needs to be acknowledged probably much better than is being done. And that we can build upon those ones to continue thinking big and thinking about ways of getting to solutions. So I think what you've talked about, some of the challenges facing medical research and the biomedical research, the funding issue, the fact that philanthropy is not mobilized well enough, and I think it ties with what Sheikh has been saying about the investments not only being financial, but there are also other forms of investment. But if you were
Yes.
to come back to some of the work that you're doing, Dr. Naika, what are the other things that you would see, mechanisms for overcoming some of those challenges, and how do we make the commitments honored, the commitments that are taken at some point, but then we don't see them happen. The researchers are in networks, international networks. They have the continental networks as well, but can they be more effective in the way they work together? This connection that Sheikh has mentioned between indigenous knowledges and medical research proper. Okay, what kind of interactions could be also promoted at that level? Yeah.
Yes, I think, thanks for them, Ibrahim. So for us, this focus on social sciences is very important. We have broad thematic areas that we focus on in an academy, and natural sciences, social sciences, health sciences, policy and governance, because it's really important that we understand that strengthening the governance and weak accountability, because sometimes researchers are doing amazing work, but then the systems within their country are not enabling them to work effectively, in fact, are hindering them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
institutional capacity, I really love what you say about, yes, it's very much about the social, it's very much about local solutions as well. But when you have, I mean, but not but, and to enable those to actually reach scale, it requires this kind of systematic support, systematic collaboration from organizations like ours supporting the researchers, but also from governments to ensure that the enabling environment within their country is there, so that when an innovation or it's not then, because this is what Africa faces. Often the discoveries are major, but then the systems within the country inhibit it actually going further, and then it's taken up by others, and then
Yeah.
developed by
Yeah.
huge biomedical
Yeah.
companies. That's not
Yeah.
really a very good return on investment, is it? So we really need to invest, but I fully agree. It's not just about investment. It's about ensuring that the key systems, enabling systems of supporting the researchers, and very importantly, allowing knowledge, because, epistemologically, we've been, as you've said, driven by a Western model, positive model, but there's a lot of indigenous knowledge systems. I mean, just in South Africa, because, I used to work at the Department of Science and Technology, we passed a bill, an indigenous knowledge system, where knowledge coming in from the indigenous knowledge, because sometimes they get taken up in indigenous in the sciences, but they're really not accredited. So you really need to be able to legislate to say that knowledge that is coming from other sources. So for us, supporting the social sciences through this networking of researchers, the Deltas Network is a Developing Excellence in Science and Leadership in Africa. They fund it, and it's covering all of the broad range of areas that were mentioned: non-communicable diseases, malaria, and very importantly, I mean, something that we that is going to become an increasing issue, that is already a big issue. We funded it previously. It's mental health, which as a result of this, it's going to become an epidemic. So we really need to be focusing on how do we support all of these relevant as a bundle. The biomedical sciences have very large role to play, but the social sciences are undeniably. And in terms of institution building, and in terms of enabling, it's getting governments on board. So we have a platform or an alliance called the Coalition for African Research and Innovation, which is chaired by Minister Elioda, who chairs the Science Technology, the Specialized Technical Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation for the African Union Commission. And what is we saying, alongside resource mobilization for science, systematic collaboration for creating and strategic advocacy to governments to create this enabling environment, to enable the kind of legislative environment for research and development and innovation to prosper is crucial. Alongside that, I mean, when we make discoveries, we need to then be able to effectively go into developing the innovation. So you support research and development, but along the innovation, along the chain is innovation. So Grand Challenges Africa is funding. Specifically, we have calls on maternal, child, neonatal health, very, very important. Data governance, because also how do you manage the data that's coming out of that? So innovations around those aspects are very important, and then supporting them in translation to scale to make sure that they can then take these innovations and go to market. We have a human genome project, which is a human hereditary and health, and this is very much focused on what you were talking about, is looking at the social, what's genetic, because the African human genome is not being adequately sequenced, and we really need to have more information. Why this is important? In order for a lot of the medicines to be effective, and you do find many medicines that are developed without this kind of thing are not as effective. For precision medicine, it's really important to invest in that. So for us, it's definitely, we understand that there's a lot of work that needs to be done at the local, but also at the Pan-African and at the regional, that institutional support to researchers, but also enabling governments to understand, other institutions to understand. For example, in clinical trials, we have a clinical trials community which launched a minimum viable product during the COVID-19 pandemic, because we're going to be needing to do very rapid clinical trials. And this platform was being developed before the COVID-19, but it was for purpose. It was launched. What it does is it looks at where the expertise for undertaking clinical trials in terms of, because you really need specific, but also in terms of legislation, what kind of enabling legislation you need, how do you fit it? So the clinical trials community, you can go online on our website, but also in terms of supporting institutions to be able to access investment. So good financial management is really important. And researchers sometimes, if you have a strong research institution, they support you in that. Many African countries don't have that. So this global grant community is doing a kind of self-assessment where you can look at, before you even go to apply for many grants, you can do a due diligence process on looking at what is your financial viability, what kind of standards. And if you don't pass certain of those hurdles, it tells you what needs to be done to enable you. So for us at the Academy, it's very important that we understand that that's an ecosystem building exercise that we're undertaking. And for us to get this next decade investment in medical and health research to reap rewards for African countries, we can't just be focusing on people sitting in their labs. We need to be investing, we need to be focusing on creating this enabling environment for researchers to across the value chain, but also for communities to be able to access the benefits of the research in Africa. And what we will find is that it won't be just beneficial for Africa, it will be beneficial for the world. So, this is a crucial topic, and you know the forum is looking at investing in the next decade. And what I was just trying to elaborate is some of the very key institutional capacity building, but also alliance building mechanisms that we need to be investing in going forward. So.
Thank you very much. Before I continue, just say to all the people who are following this discussion that the conversation goes on. Of course, it should continue on social media as well. And then there's a donate button on the African Philanthropy website that you can go to and make a donation if you feel. Of course, you should feel. We hope that this is a lot of important and worthwhile causes to support. So you're encouraged to do that. I want to come back one more time before we probably give a chance also to the people in the audience who want to comment. Of course, we have a situation in which you have good things going on, including I think Chef, you mentioned the people manufacturing ventilators, masks. Of course, that has been done. You have seen it. Ventilators. There is the whole discussion around vaccines. You also need them, right? They'll be coming. At what cost are they coming to this continent? Who is going to have access to them? So a lot of issues of, equity and so on that will be raised here. But for the innovations that are going on, both what you've spoken to and what Dr. Naika has spoken to.
Hello. 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 I don't hear you.
Yes, me neither.
How do you scale them up? I mean, how do you have like a university being able to? Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, the internet is a bit unstable. I do have my mobile phone on to use it as a hotspot, but yeah, and that's what I'm using actually. It's usually stable. So I was just saying that you have a lot of innovations. But the issue is, how do you scale them up? So you need investments of a certain magnitude, and there I think you need really public resources to be devoted in a much bigger way, making sure that the good work is done, by university laboratories and other centers, and then you need the African philanthropy to come in for the high net worth individuals.
Yeah.
Have resources, they should also put their resources there. Manufacturing ventilators. But I like this concept of an ecosystem that you have used as well, where you see different pieces, different for it, and how do how do you connect them to so that they support each other, and then you have a viable mechanism for going to. But really, the big issue is how do you? I want to see. Probably is a good way to come back to this conversation before you go to the audience. Senegal has been cited in the face of the COVID as the countries that have done well in responding. Are we losing Dr. Naika? I think we've lost Dr. Naika. I think she dropped off. I think. I hope she will come back. Yeah. But I was just going to ask you to speak a little bit to the. I think at every level you need some an understanding of actually what can work in the context. What are the things that can work in our context, and what are the that can work at the local level, even at the macro level? I remember, there's this whole conversation about the use of particular kinds of drugs and molecules, and elsewhere they say don't use them, or they say don't use them. In Senegal, they made a choice from the beginning that it works for them, and they kept to it. But what are some of the explanations for the performance that is good performance of Senegal in the context? Is that like an illustration of how research can help in finding solutions that work?
What happened in Senegal is that at the biomedical levels, they have researchers that take into consideration the effect of the medicines they was using. But when you are in a context where people are running away from the hospitals, and so you cannot say because we found the cures that help that resolve the problem. It's part of the solution, but it was not enough. What happened is that the social science research was involved at the first cases, right in Dakar and Tuba, and work very hard to understand the social context of the chain of transmission of the virus, and look at the barrier, and look at the power relation, look at the discursive aspect. How can you convince people? And who is the one who can convince people? What is we work very hard on how to decode the discourse that come from religious authorities and how to report and to gain the confidence of religious authority. So this social science research help to anticipate the probability, the eventuality of resistance, of violence resistance. So the resistance was calmed down because the social science know what to do in order to have on board women, youth, religious leaders, and so on. So we have very few resistance in Tuba. In Dakar, what happened? Dakar was the epicenter. What the social science researchers and volunteers did, they went to the hot zones, to the neighborhood, to the popular and poor neighborhood, and work with communities on the way they protect themselves. If the state come and help, fine. If it doesn't come help, they take care of their proposals. And they build big coalition of religious leaders, young people, women, including they conclude also health workers, and this large coalition, and ask for volunteer. Because when a society is in crisis, young people will offer to volunteer. So they build on how to historically people face the danger by making the sacrifice, the necessary sacrifice. So that also comes from a study, a big study on how to mobilize local resources when the system is failing or when the system is taking lockdown. But what helped is that the state recognized this work. And the state did not antagonize the communities. And we changed also a lot the first discourse, the discourse for the prevention. That was very paternalistic at the beginning, very paternalistic. It was given only instruction in one side communication. So the social science help to nuance, help to change the way that the first communication was done. And it helped. It makes the communication more smooth, more easy. So, and also how to assess by the communities, how they evaluate themselves, how they demand transparency, how they don't want politicians to be involved. In fact, politician was a big problem. How they don't want politicians to be involved, how they control the effect of politicians. So all these lessons was put in place. So these processes was put in place. And the social sciences, because they know that the role of women into processing health, in the fabric of health, they put women at the front line. The face of women, the image of women make a big, huge difference in the suburb, in the poor suburb around Dakar. And you have a new face of heroes, of young and women hero who was at the front line. And it's also the issue, some cultural issue. We understood that when you are too directive and when you bring the solution from outside, people feel that they are losing their freedom, the sense of freedom, the sense of dignity. In Wolof, they will say, God. When people evoke that, they will say, if I adhere, I accept the measure, it's because I like them, because I find them. It's not because the state have put power on. And the state understands that. So I think it was two ways learning. The state had learned a lot, and communities had reinforced themselves a lot. And progressively, the confidence between the communities and the health system came progressively. And I think it's part of the success of the Senegalese story. And thank you very much.
I hope this has been documented, because there's definitely
we are on the process of documenting. We are presenting our results at the local level, because we went back to the district, to the rural district, to show them what lesson we learn, how we are in that process. And we also present them to the state. Just recently, we will continue to present it to the highest level. But I forgot also, the strategy was developed with the communities. And when we went all the way to the head of state, we meet the head of state, and finally he endorsed the strategy. And because they was running out of strategy also, and the system was panicking. and this junction between the states, because of all the problems, and the communities was I think was something unique. That if you look at the US or the Europe, where you have this fight, this political fight, and this tension between the political level and the politician level and the community level, we say Africa have some lesson to share with the rest of the world.
Absolutely. Look, we would want to actually encourage people who in the audience have some brief comments to make or questions to ask. I don't know how I think we are told that somebody of the Secretariat APF will be forwarding the questions to us or opening the floor. I don't see a possibility for doing it technically from my side, but we welcome questions and observations. Brief, of course, we don't have much more time left, but if anybody has something or some clarification to seek from Professor Nyang and Dr. Naika, hopefully will be rejoining, or a question to ask or a comment to make, they're welcome to do so. Otherwise, the conversation continues on social media. Yep. Yeah. Look, I think I just one more thing that I wanted to add to this, to emphasize the some of the points that we were making. Professor Yang,
I don't hear you. I don't hear you. Yeah, technicality. Hello? No, it's not coming.
We've had this experience.
Yeah, it's not coming. I did not hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I hear you.
Hello, yes. Can you hear me now? Is it?
Yeah, I hear you now. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah. No. Yes. So I was just saying the experiences. There's some kind of cumulative experience from different when you had the experience of Ebola, then you had HIV/AIDS. I think there's been really sufficient demonstration that that of course you do have a medical dimension that's very important. The investment needs to be very important at a level, but a lot more needs to be done, outside of that, and I think I was really fascinated by what they were saying about like 1,000 students and senior researchers participating in this voluntary work, because we have seen how in the distinction you are making between social distances just simply didn't make sense you know, in a context where we had maybe you could talk about physical distancing, but social distancing,
Yeah,
when you need
yeah,
and people have
yeah,
they're
yeah,
challenging, yeah,
yeah,
you know, um,
yeah,
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 but
yeah, yeah,
because how do you get, you know,
yeah, yeah. We
you know
find,
that yeah, I'm just thinking that, you know, with all those experiences now, then you get back to again to the point we are making at the very beginning, that, you know, you need to understand this problem as a health problem that has dimensions that are more than biomedical,
yeah,
that, you know, that needs to be
mm,
taken into account,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
in a much more
yeah,
serious way. I think that's really the, so that in a sense, if
yeah,
one was
yeah.
to
That's
one was to reframe the thing, looking inwards, investing in health research, we would say, and to drive solutions that work in our context in the face of
yeah,
endemic.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
If you have any one last
yeah,
comment that you want to make
yeah,
before we,
yeah. I think,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I just want to congratulate you and to thank you for inviting me, and to reassure you that we will continue to document that, and we will share it to the African colleagues to have some input of different experiences, because it's not only Senegal who succeed. You have many African countries who have succeed in general. Why? Because the communities have the right responses. So we need to put all this together and learn the lesson for the other health crisis. So malaria, mental health. I think this model, this approach of community engagement for against corona, that prolonge in some sense the same community engagement against Ebola, could help to find a way for better solution on the other neglected or unseen health crisis. So I would like to, and also all the new technology that will be appropriate by African. Here I'm talking about medical research. All this medical research tool will need a vehicle. They will need to enter the communities. For that, you need to know the communities. You need to work with the communities, and you need to trust the leadership of the communities and bring the technical tool as as a tool, as something that you add to an already existing struggle of response. And for the state have to be involved. But what I learned a little bit is the state will be involved in the pressure. If you don't have pressure on the state, they don't move. And the press, this is why the organization is important, because it's a civil society. The civil society has the credibility to be listened by the communities. The communities trust the civil society, and they consider them as non-political partisan. And the state also will listen, because they know the links that exist, that can exist between the society and the civil society. So I think this will also help for better management and better use of what's going on in the labs, because we need to. The lab doesn't make sense if you don't look at the environmental lab and all these political and cultural issues that are around the labs. So,
Thank you.
I would like to thank you. I just like to add, there is a misspelling of my name.
Oh, sorry.
The
Director.
Nyang, N-I-A-N-G. The G was forgotten.
NG, yes. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll make sure. Yeah.
Please, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was really great having you on this panel. And then thank you very much to Dr. Naika as well with us. And we thank the organizers, and we thank our facilitator, Kaiden Busarello, who's been helping us technically with this whole setup. And thank the African Philanthropy Forum, and then say good luck to them, and all the best. So that.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.